Hello and welcome to my channel. My name is Jenny. I'm from JennyCardDesigns. Thanks so much for stopping by today. My YouTube channel contains content that is intended to share paper crafting tutorials and inspiration with all of you. I hope that you enjoy. In today's video, I've got a fun and colorful slimline card project using the Gina K Designs mini stamp set Enjoy Today. I'm going to be using my Genvelope template reference book. This is a book that I've designed which is full of templates for all different sorts of card projects, particularly envelopes, and how to create your own envelopes using one piece of cardstock. So for today's video, I'm going to be creating a policy style slimline envelope, and I have the template reference here so that I can create my slimline envelope. So I'm just going to get that page open, and then I'm going to go pick out some cardstock to create my card project. So I'm going to use some Gina K Designs Tangerine Twist cardstock. This is 100-pound heavyweight cardstock. I like to use this for my envelopes and my card bases so that they coordinate nicely and I have a nice quality substantial feel. So I have 2 sheets of cardstock. So I'm going to start with the first sheet and I'm going to put it in my scoreboard, and across the 8.5 inch side I'm going to score at 2.5 inches. And then my next score is going to be at 6.5 inches. And then I'm going to rotate my cardstock 1 turn to the left, and I'm going to score at 1.5 inches, making sure that my cardstock is nice and tightly in the corner of my scoreboard. And then my second score is at 10.5 inches. So that's all we'll need the scoreboard for now. And I'm going to take a look at my template reference, and I'm going to cut out all of the sections that are red. So I'm just going to do that very quickly and cut off these little excess squares. Now don't throw these away. We're going to use these later on in this project. So just set those aside for now. And then this is what we should have. So the next step, we're just going to make a few angled cuts to help this envelope fold together nicely. So I'll start with the bottom and I'll create a 45-degree angle cut. And then I'm just going to trim a little bit off the tops here and create a little slight angle. It just gives us a little bit of room to be able to slip our card into the envelope. I'll go ahead and I'll crease all of the folds using my bone folder. And then you can see this envelope start to come together. So you'll have a smaller flap and a larger flap. You're going to add adhesive to the outer edge of the larger flap and seal that all together. And then add adhesive to that little tiny bottom flap and fold it up. This is going to close our envelope. And I just use my bone folder to press everything together nicely to make sure that I get good contact and everything is sealed up nicely. Okay? So here's a look at that envelope. So you can punch a little hole here, a little finger notch. I don't think it's necessary because we've created those angled cuts. And now I'll take a corner rounder, I'll round the flaps of my envelope. I just feel like that gives a nice finishing touch. All right, let's move over to the card base. In my template book, I've got a page full of different card measurements for card layers for your slimline card, and also giving you the measurements for cutting and scoring a slimline card base. So I take my 8.5 by 11 sheet of cardstock, and across the 11-inch side, I'm going to cut at 7 inches. Okay, this will give us a piece of cardstock that measures 8.5 inches by 7. And in my scoreboard, I'll pop that piece of cardstock in, and I'm going to score at 3.5 inches. And then I'll crease that fold. This will give us a card base that measures 3.5 inches by 8.5 inches. All right, let's go move into some stamping. So for my stamping, I'm using my JennyCardDesigns stamping mat. This is just a rubber mat that I designed that has some grid marks on it that help you get your pieces lined up nice and straight, and it is a fantastic surface for stamping. So this is a great little tool to use on the go and pretty much anywhere you can get a great stamped impression. Okay, so I've got 4 colors of Gina K Designs premium dye inks, and I've got some acrylic blocks, and I'm going to start taking some of those images from the Enjoy Today stamp set, and I'm going to pop them on my acrylic blocks, and I'm just going to rub the stamp a little bit because I haven't used it yet, and I just want to wipe off some of that manufacturing residue. And then I'm going to start with the Wild Dandelion ink. And I'm going to ink it up real good, and I'm going to test it out on a scrap piece of cardstock just to make sure that I get a good stamped impression. And that looks good. And I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to ink up again and stamp on my cardstock. And I'm just creating randomized patterns. I'm just sort of inking up and stamping down, no rhyme or reason. I'm just making my own pattern background. So I want to use all 4 of my colors for this. I'm going to select another stamp from the set, and I'm going to stamp that with Tangerine Twist ink. And I'll stamp that a couple of times, and then I'll move along to another stamp and a smaller block, and I'll stamp with Lucky Clover ink, and then I'll stamp with a Turquoise C, and then I'm going to go back and forth a couple of times with different inks and different stamps and just create a very random pattern. I'm overlapping here and there and just having some fun, making a really fun and vibrant background. So once that's done, I'm going to go back to my trimmer, and this little piece of cardstock I trimmed off creating my card base. And I'm going to use that as a layer for my stamped panel. So I'm going to cut this piece down to 3 3/8 and then 8 3/8, I think. It's basically just 1 notch past 1/4 inch. I think that's 3/8. I'm very bad at this. I've never been very strong at fractions. All right, let's move along here. I'm going to pull in a silicone craft mat, and I'm going to do some ink blending on this panel of cardstock. And I'll use my Gina K Designs blending brush, and I'm just going to ink up the edges of this cardstock with the Tangerine Twist ink. I just want to pump up the volume on that orange a little bit, just to make it a little bit stronger. Okay, so once that's done, I'm going to adhere my panel to my orange inked panel. And this panel measures 3 1/4 by 8 1/4 with a little 1/8 inch border all the way around. Okay, now I'm going to just lay that on my card base, take a look, and I feel like it needs a little bit of dimension. So I'm going to take some foam tape here, and I'm going to cut up some strips of foam tape and put that on the back of my card, peel off the release paper, and pop that right on the front of my card base. Perfect. I love the way that looks. And normally I do landscape style cards. Today I've decided to create a portrait style slimline card, just for something a little bit different. Okay, so now we need a sentiment. I'm going to take that same stamp set and I'm going to pull out the greeting that says Enjoy Today. And I'm going to stamp that on some black cardstock. I'm going to pull in my stamping mat, an anti-static powder bag, some Versamark ink, and I'm going to ink up that stamp really, really good and stamp onto my black cardstock. And I've got a coffee filter and some alabaster white embossing powder. And this is an ultra fine detail powder. And I'm going to sprinkle that over top of my stamped image and make sure that I get good coverage on my sentiment. And I will tap vigorously on the side of my cardstock, making sure I get off any of the excess. Give it a couple of good flicks. Looks good, I'm happy with that. And I'm going to take my embossing powder, put it back into my little jar, and I'm going to heat set this until it is smooth and melted. All right, so that looks good. Now I want to find a die to cut this sentiment out. I'm just going to pull in my fridge bin that has all of my dies in it, and I'm going to dig through and look for something that will fit this sentiment. I'm sure that one of the Master Layouts dies will fit. I couldn't find those in my craft room, so I just pulled out this little scallopy square die. This is a Spellbinders die set. And so that looks good. I'm happy with that. I'm going to run that through my Gemini Junior die cutting machine, and I'm going to cut that out. And now we're going to move along to those little strips that I told you to save. So what I'm going to do is create a little bit of dimension behind my sentiment with those extra pieces of cardstock that I would have otherwise thrown away. So I'm going to stack them all up together, glue them in behind my sentiment, and then we've got a very subtle bit of dimension that you won't really see behind the card. It'll just kind of blend in nicely because of all those oranges and colors. And so I think that's perfect. Now I'm just going to sort of like angle this a little bit. I think it kind of looked neat. I didn't want to do it like, perfectly straight. I thought it was a little bit fun and wonky, just turning a little bit. And I love that black pop off of that card. I think it really looks gorgeous. All right, next up I'm going to grab some sequins. These are some flat clear sequins. They have a little bit of an iridescent sparkle. They don't have a hole in them, they're just flat. I'll take some of my glue and I'll just put down a few dots here and there. And I just want to scatter some of these sequins around my card. I'll use my jewel picker to pick up those gems and pop them onto those little glue dots that I put on my card. And voila! I think I ended up putting like 15 sequins. I thought I was going to do 2 or 3. I ended up doing a whole bunch. You know, sometimes I don't know when to stop. But I think it turned out nice. Here's a look at our finished card project. I had so much fun creating this card, and not my normal color palette. I wanted to do some fun, vibrant colors, and this is what I turned up with. Alright, that's it for today's video. Thank you so much for taking time out of your day to spend it here with me. I appreciate the support as always. And also, if you're interested in any of the products that I've shared in this video, you'll find them linked in the description box down below, including my Gemvelope template reference book, as well as my stamping mat, which are both on sale if you buy them in a bundle. So check that out on my website. It'll be linked in the description box down below. And we do ship to Canada and US. Coming up on screen are a couple of videos I think you may enjoy, including a playlist full of Gina K Designs product inspiration videos that I've created over the past couple of years. I hope you'll check out some of those videos. So, have yourself a lovely day, and I will see you in the next one. Bye!